Hi guys, I'm Captain Mike Fallon, and I'm a pretty big outdoorsman. I do a lot of hunting and a lot of fishing, from everything from trout, freshwater stuff, largemouth bass, stripers, tuna, up here, down the Cape, inshore, offshore. Moved into a new house a few months ago, and obviously the first order of business was getting the basement set up, and wanted to take you for a little tour and share a little bit about how I organize my stuff. And really the main point is to be able to find stuff when you need it. So this is the workbench area over here. That's just two 8-foot wood benches. We got a little shelf underneath. I put a little backing around the top here, so all the small stuff can roll off the back.
That's a really smart idea, Mike. I try to get mine pinned up against the wall, but looks like you got a little gap there, and that's great. So all the little things don't roll off the back.
Yeah, if something can fall off, it will. So.
Yeah.
I also do a lot of rod building and fly tying, so I have all sorts of little hooks and guides and parts and everything else. So trying to keep track of everything is one of the biggest issues. I like Pegboard. You can move it around, you can set it up however you want, you can change it, it's not permanent. I found Amazon is a great spot to grab a lot of the various Pegboard hooks. I like the 4 or sometimes 6 inches, and they sell them in big bulk packs. You can get Pegboard real cheap from Home Depot or Lowe's. I like to frame it with a little bit of strapping just to give it a little rigidity, and that way you can it gives you something to hang it from, because once you start putting 100 hooks on here with a whole bunch of stuff, it gets heavy pretty quick. And you want to make sure it's not just screwed through Pegboard into the ceiling, or else you might wake up to a bad morning sometime.
That's a great point, Mike. So can we see any of the strapping in here anywhere by any chance?
Yeah, you can probably look up around here on the side.
Oh yeah, there it is up. Ooh, gotta get used to
on
the
the
camera.
side of it.
Yeah,
Maybe.
there you go. So you did some strapping straight down.
So I frame it just to give it a little rigidity. That way you're screwing wood to wood and not this Pegboard material to wood. It really doesn't support. I don't know how much this weighs right now, but it's probably a good amount. And I try to set my stuff up loosely by category. Well, the small stuff I'll keep in little containers like this.
That looks like a lot of fly tying equipment.
Yep.
And rod building stuff.
Yep, fly tying stuff, some rod building stuff, thread, what have you. A lot of the hooks I like to have on the Pegboard just because I can find them a lot easier. When I have a box full of 100 different packs of hooks, it's kind of a pain in the butt to rifle through it and find the right ones. I try to separate it by genre of fishing, saltwater, freshwater, and whatnot. I have most of my freshwater stuff on the left, and some surf stuff, and a bunch of saltwater and tuna stuff on the right.
And these little bins right here are good little catch-alls too.
Yep, got
right?
those on Amazon as well, and they were cheap. And I actually think I'm going to order another pack of those. They're like 4-inch by 4-inch bins, I believe.
Yep.
And they're pretty nice. You can get a bunch of loose swivels and re-rigging rods. You don't want to put a used swivel back in a pack and risk getting stuff rusty. So you can store stuff, however you want to do it.
There you go. You got a little rod building equipment here.
Yep, got some rod building stuff and a bunch of other just kind of regular workbench stuff too.
There's your wrapper.
But I find if you can't find it, you can't use it. So, and then you end up buying it or replacing it when you don't have to. So,
is that a gun cleaning mat on top there for grip? Is that what this is?
It is, yeah. I actually found it the other day, and it's been nice for rod building and kind of nice soft surface where stuff doesn't try to roll away on you.
Got a nice jig bag here.
Yep. Plenty of jigs.
It is definitely the best way to store jigs. You don't want them in a box because they're heavy. They crack in the box.
They bang around on each other too. Anything bigger than a few ounces, I don't like to store in like a Plano container, just because if you're on the boat, they just every time you hit a wave, you're just slamming them around. Not only that, but when you have a bunch of jigs, especially with treble hooks and whatnot in a box, those hooks get dull pretty quick, and a lot of times you don't realize it. But
who makes this jig bag?
I think it's a Nomad.
Nomad Design. Nice.
Other than that, I just try to keep everything kind of out where I know where it is. Use the winter months to change hooks, re-rig everything. I just got done splicing new top shots on most of my trolling reels.
Yeah, let's talk about the rod storage you got going over here.
Well, it's kind of lacking at the moment. I have to frame this wall and then put up some of my rod racks from my last house. But for right now, we're doing the lean-to method.
Yeah.
And it's working all right as long as one doesn't fall over. The other day I managed to take them all out in one fell swoop. Got this little thing, I think on Amazon as well, and it's going to store all sorts of different types of line and everything. I'm always have half spools of line or line I took off one reel and it's still good. I don't want to throw it out, but you know, so I always make sure I label everything. I mean, it's like simple, but piece of masking tape, right where reel it came off of. This was JB Hollow and a Makara 50. I think I ended up swapping it with 80 pound from 130. So I know it's good, ready to go, and whenever I have another reel that needs it, I can throw it right on.
I've noticed all around this place, like every box, okay, like you got tuna marked there, you know, things over here I see top water. I'm sure you got 1,000 of those, right? Tuna, sharks, canal jigs, and then you think even over here, some of your hunting stuff. Right, archery, muzzle loader.
I try to keep everything labeled as well as I can. I can definitely improve upon that, but it's I find I used to think that I'll remember things when I put them away, and I don't know if it's because I'm getting older or what, but it's not the case anymore. So I try to label it as best I can so I can find it without trying to rifle through every photo I have.
This is a nice little feature here too.
Yep, that's just like a Plano holder. I have no idea where that came from. It's been around for a while, but you know, it's nice because it allows you to take one of them out without taking all of them out. So I do stack them underneath the workbench as well, but if you got 4 or 5 of them stacked up, you gotta take the other ones off to get to the ones at the bottom and so forth.
This is a nice little rod holder too. You got a bunch of stuff here.
Yeah, there's a bunch of different knockoff versions of those on I think that's a casting, but if you go on Amazon or eBay, the same thing's being sold by 100 different companies.
What's really nice I noticed about your ceiling, it's pretty high.
It is. That was one of the big selling points for me in this basement. I think it's like an 8 foot or so anyways, and it allows me to easily have 7.5 foot rods, even 8 foot rods.
Yeah, the way mine goes in the beams, I can't get my rod to the side, so I store mine vertically like that, so up in the ceiling as well.
Which works good too.
Yeah.
You know, especially when you have your stuff for the given season, you take it down and you put the off-season stuff up there. I gotta put some. I really like the old school. Just kind of this type of rod holder. I put a bunch of them on the wall next to each other, and you can put a whole bunch of rods there.
Yeah.
So I'll probably end up framing that wall and stringing these all across the side.
Kind of finish that one up.
Just haven't done that yet. But,
and then oh geez, you got more rods up here too, bub.
Yeah, I got a few kicking around.
Mike, where do you find the time to do all this fishing?
Well, it's tough running charters because you need 6 of everything. So.
Well, that's the truth too, right? If you're running trips, taking 6 people out,
yeah,
you know,
6 mackerel rods, 6 bait runners, 6 6 other rods. So everything in multiples of 4 or 6 for the most part. But yeah, that's really
I think my favorite thing is just the shelf that they're reusing of the line and just kind of marking it. You know, especially like you said.
I always save my empty. Yeah, I save some of my empty containers of line so I can put it on. I mean, I use a lot of hollow core for the offshore stuff. The nice thing is you can splice it right into itself with 100% strength, and even if you have a 50-yard section of line, you can still use it and put it on a reel, and you don't lose anything. Whereas if you have solid core braid, you got a 50 yards of it, it's basically useless. Unless you don't care how strong it is. So I'm kind of moving my stuff, and anything over 60 pounds and above, I've pretty much been going to hollow core. It's more expensive up front, but I think it probably saves money in the long run. So.
Absolutely. And one last thing I just noticed out of the corner of my eye. What is this contraption down here?
Right here?
Yeah.
So this right here is, I forget what the heck you call it. I found the instructions online, but basically it allows you to serve, it's a wind-on jig basically. So it allows you to serve your connection from your top shot to your hollow core braid. So basically it allows you to tighten it up between these two, and then you take, I usually use 30 or 50 pound Power Pro or something, and actually serve the connection so that it doesn't slip at all.
That's definitely a cheaper version than the one I got going. I think mine was like $100 or something.
I've served probably 1,000 top shots on this thing over the past several years, and it works really well. So it's just got rubber. It's it's got rubber, the key here is it's got rubber washers in between the metal ones so that you're not squeezing, you don't have any metal on the line.
Yeah.
And when you put it in, you don't want to like torque it around the threads here or anything. But all you have to do is, you know, you're not putting a whole bunch of pressure, but you're keeping it tight and taut enough so that you can I use half inch down the connection, about an inch on either side.
Do you still have the spooling station that in our old house when we used to live together?
I don't know where that is. Yeah.
How are you spooling all those? You just told me when I came down here, you're spooling all these.
So this was a trick the other day.
Hang on, let me come in on the other side.
The nice thing is that when you're spooling a heavier pound test monofilament, you really don't want to put any pressure on it. You don't want to stretch it out you don't need to reel it under tension like you do.
It's totally like
braid.
not like braid.
So for this, I'll just kind of do something like that, and obviously have your vise bolted down to the bench so it doesn't move.
That's a genius idea.
Something
Mike.
like that, and it allows me to spool up the top shots of my reels, especially when these reels aren't going to be used for several months. I don't want to put the mono on under a lot of tension.
Yeah.
Because it has a lot of memory, unlike the braid that's sitting underneath it.
I got that same vice. I'm stealing that idea. I never even thought about that. Cool.
I do have I had a little spring contraption, which I think shot across the room. But basically, another cheap way to do it is if you get like a spring you can get little springs online or from Home Depot or something, and you put some washers on it, and you basically force everything into here. Actually, the spring made itself inside this at this point. And then I'll basically use the spring, jam it into here, and close this, and it'll be under some tension.
Yeah, so if you're spooling a reel with braid, for example, you would add the spring to get the tension.
It's fine for like straight bass reels tension. If you're doing offshore stuff, you're still going to want to let it out and reel it back in.
Yeah.
Because it will dig under itself and you start putting 20, 25, 30 pounds of heat on it. But it's at least better than trying to just hold it between your two fingers and reel it through that.
100%.
So I try to get all that stuff done in the winter months to keep busy, and that way it'll be ready to go in the springtime.
Well, Mike, this was awesome. You know, we came down here. I remember when the first house you bought, we were roommates together for a couple of years there, and the first thing we did was build the benches.
Yep, exactly, the same benches.
And I'm sure, are these the same ones?
Yep, these are.
Oh, you just took them from the old house, huh?
Yep.
All right, so I actually constructed one of these.
Yep. Exactly.
Probably this one because there's a mistake on it.
Yeah. No, that's it.
But no, dude, it looks great. Learned a lot. I really dig that little trick. That was something I wasn't expecting in the homemade Windon jig. We'll do a video soon this winter and we'll talk about making some Windons, huh?
That would be good.
All right, cool. Well, one day, hopefully, I hope to aspire. I got a quarter of the stuff you do because all I really do is striper fishing and a little tuna fishing and shark fishing up here. But the organization aspect of this is really unbelievable. So before I go, right, you mentioned earlier, you know, you get your hooks up here. Are these just like your backup hooks? Do you have tackle storage ready to go like on your boat? Because with all this stuff, right?
Oh, yeah.
So what are you bringing on your boat day to day?
This is actually the thing that usually stays in my boat right here. This milk crate.
Yeah.
And as you can see, I have a preference for color of lures. They're generally white. Got some other smaller stuff, some Rapalas. I have my jig heads. I tend to label it on the outside with masking tape, and that way you kind of know what size is what when you're putting it back away. Some macro jigs.
Cool, then my favorite box of all time.
Yeah, in terms of hooks, I really like this, I think it's Plano Edge series, I think, right?
Yeah, can you do me a favor, can you tilt it towards me just a little bit?
Yep.
Yeah, there we go.
And these have a kind of a cool, it's pretty watertight, easy to open with one hand, and it has all sorts of little mini compartments so you can kind of organize it however you want. I have all my crimps, various size swivels, TA clips, some trolling bridles, swivels, extra planer board releases, whatever.
I've had mine for 2 seasons now and pretty much lays out on my deck, and everything in there is crystal clear, clean.
Yeah, it's
like no rust, anything.
It's nice because I can go into here and even my hands are wet, I'm sloppy, and I get water into one of these little containers. It's just in that when I might fry a couple hooks, but it's not getting in the other 20 containers.
Yeah.
So the one I go into mostly when I need more hooks is my 8/0 inline circle hooks. It's probably the bread and butter hook that we use 90% of the time for stripers, especially after the new regulations. And
then once it gets low, you just come right up here, boom, grab some more,
exactly,
drop them in.
This is more for off-season storage and everything. I have pulled some stuff. I have a lot of other stuff in the boat I've pulled out. This is a bunch of tuna box with some rigging needles, some more different types of crimps. and various size tuna hooks and some rigging, some
rubber bands.
Yeah, for bridling them. And but these planos, they're one hand opening, which is really nice.
That's been my favorite part about these plano edge boxes, is being able to open them with one hand.
And the nice thing is when they're shut, they're shut. You don't have the thing where you thought you snapped the 2 prongs down, you didn't, and then you turn it sideways and it all comes out, which is
100%
terrible.
They ain't cheap, but man, they're worth it.
They are, yeah.
They really are.
They're not too much now, so if you look around, you can
get them about $20 a pop or something.
Yeah,
right?
they're not bad. For leader material, I tend to do something like this. I can put 3 or 4 of them kind of in here like that.
Yeah. And
I store them like that. It's out of the sun. The ones I'm using, I'll leave on my dash or my little holder on my dash. But
yeah,
it's a good way to.
I noticed something. You also label your leader. What did I see on the top of that one there?
What's that? Oh yeah. So a lot of times I'll label the year I got the fluoro, just so I know which ones are older or newer. So I think this is a brand new one, and then this is this one I got last year. So I know what's old, what's new. You don't really have to worry about it too much with fluorocarbon, but it's
yeah, especially when you're storing them in here for most of the time.
Yeah, it just doesn't hurt. So that way I know kind of when I got it. If I look back, I have a 10-year-old thing of fluorocarbon. Maybe I ditch it. So,
yeah.
But yeah, that's about it. I find just kind of a lot of this stuff will end up on the boat in the summertime. Right now, I have a lot of it up, changing out hooks, re-rigging stuff, and making sure everything is good to go. I mean, I have a lot of sluggos and stuff I take off the boat, and sometimes they get a little rusty, but the hooks are still good, so I'll hang them up, and I'll use those in some situations next year where I feel it's warranted.
What's this little contraption you got going here?
That is called a fluid bed, and it's used for powder coating jig heads or other like mackerel jigs, like these type of jobs right here. So what I like to do with jigs is I'll do these really cheap jigs I buy off eBay in like packs of 10. Yeah.
I just actually grabbed some for me. I picked them up today.
There you go.
Some haddock jigs.
And usually they come with no hooks, which is fine because you can get hooks pretty cheap. That way, most of the time when I buy jigs, I end up replacing the hooks anyway, so I'd rather not pay for the hooks up front if I'm going to swap them. And I like to get stuff off. A lot of times you get the bare jigs off eBay for very cheap. Something like this. There's some bare lead ones over here behind the white ones that they usually.
So that's how it started, and then that's what it became.
Exactly. And the fluid bed. So basically, I use a heat gun, and you can heat up. You can heat up this lead head enough, and then you basically stick it into powder paint. The issue is if it's just in this jar right here, you can kind of stir it with a toothpick to loosen it up, but you're not going to get a big jig head all the way in it.
It gets clumpy. I mean, I was doing some powder jigs on some of my mackerel stuff one year, and it just didn't really work out the way I wanted it to. So seeing this thing here, I have to pick one up.
This thing is, it makes it almost like it's a little bit of air into the bottom of it. So it almost makes it basically doubles the volume. If you put like a little, like this much paint in here, it turns into that.
Yeah. And
it almost looks like it's boiling like water, but basically there's just some air going through it. So it's almost like liquid. So you can just stick the whole jig head in there, no problem, and you get a lot of coverage all the way around. Yeah. This one I think I ran out of paint actually, but it basically allows you to paint stuff a lot easier, and you don't have to keep stirring it in between everything. And I think it was $20 or $30. I think I got it from a little company called TJ's Tackle. I think somewhere in the Midwest, but it was pretty cheap. So I like to do some jig heads. I paint different colors, mackerel jigs. I get the little cheaper painted ones off eBay because I go through a lot of those, and works pretty good.
Awesome. Well, again, Mike, thanks again. Learned a lot. I'm going to spend a lot of money on storage stuff now. I'm a couple days away from really revamping mine when I get some time off of work here. But you've definitely set the stage for something to aspire to when it comes to keeping your shit organized.
It's a good way to pass the winter months, and have something to do. So rod building is a fun hobby I've gotten into in the past several years. And you gotta have a long open space for that. So it keeps me. One of the reasons I've been able to keep my workbench nice and open is because otherwise you can't do anything on it. So.
Yeah. All right, cool, man. Thank you, Mike. If you guys want more content like this, please check out mouthsofthemerrimack.com. All right, appreciate it, man.
Take care.